moving back a little bit, you were talking about your experience as, well, what you still are, a in software engineer, going through life when you decided who you wanted to be. Why was it that you convinced yourself that any mediocre forms of success in my eyes, or any form of success I would have, would be mediocre if I don't reach the highest pinnacle possible and compare myself to some of the greats to do it, such as Bill Gates? Why was that such the highest goal for you? And why did you convince yourself that if I didn't reach that goal, that anything other than that was complete failure?
It's a good question. I don't know exactly why that was. I think um, I came into life feeling extremely wrong, right? That I just wasn't good enough. I was not worthy of love. I wasn't worthy of even breathing the air. So it was like I was at a minus a million or something on some scale of worthiness, and I had to like fight my way up. And I don't know where that idea came from exactly. I think that I shared it with my dad later, and he was like, "That sounds crazy. That's like bizarre." But I think there was some sort of, I learned some way unconsciously or subconsciously that there was this expectation of high performance. Maybe it was like, you know, um, those people were presented as examples of like, oh, God, this person is amazing. Look at what Bill Gates did, or whatever, Steve Jobs or some of those people. Or I made that up in my mind that like, oh, these are incredible. Like dad would love this person if he did that. Right. So it's kind of like that,
Yes.
because like I felt so wrong and unloved. I actually had a moment with my dad some years ago. Because growing up, I heard from my dad, and I love my dad and adore him today. Um, and he's actually in town. My parents still live in Denmark, and they just arrived last night. I picked them up at the airport to come visit me. So
Oh,
uh,
great.
love them much. But uh, um, I I didn't feel loved, and I didn't feel seen or understood as a kid. I think there's
Mm,
two things that a child needs, that anybody needs. We need to be seen, and we need to be loved. If we're loved but not seen, then we feel like the love has nothing really to do with us, right? If we're seen but not loved, then it's like, yeah, you see me and you don't like me, right? Like I'm shit. Sorry if you're non-explicit here
no, we're good.
on your podcast. Um, and then if you got neither, then like you're really screwed. So I didn't feel loved and I didn't feel seen, but I was told that I was being loved, and it was really weird. I've read there's studies on this that shows that if you don't love your kid and you're just honest about that, that's actually way healthier for the child than if you don't love your kid but you pretend like you do.
Mm,
Because what it does is it messes up our barometer for what love is. And so now we think that love means I'm in a relationship that doesn't feel nourishing, that doesn't feel loving, that doesn't feel like I'm being seen or loved. And then those are the relationships we're going to go and create in our lives, right? With other people, with our friends, with our teammates, with our partners, spouses, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I got. And actually, so I had this conversation with my dad some like 5 years ago, where we, had some drinks, and he was like, you know what, son, I never understood who you were. And I'm not sure. I wasn't sure I really liked you, but now I'm starting to see who you are, and I really like you. And it was like oddly like warm and wonderful for me to hear, because at that point I didn't really need his love anymore, and it validated what my feelings were growing up. So I think that definitely has something to do with it.
I see. Wow. Well, and that makes me think about why just being honest with people is so important, even if the truth hurts. Because the way I think about it is the truth is something that it could hurt for the long term, but it usually hurts for the short term. Meanwhile, when you
Yeah.
lie with somebody and you're dishonest, that could be long lasting hurt and trauma for a person that is unnecessary when you can just be honest.
Sin. It's so important. Um, and it's hard. It's been hard for me. I've just gone through a process, because like with my team members and even other people, that like I value connection and love so much that that I hadn't figured out how to give, feedback, how to tell people, hey, this is not what I need. Here's what I need from you instead in any kind of relationship without making them wrong or disconnecting. I hadn't figured that out in my head. And it was part of it was an inner thing and part of it was an outer thing I could process. But it's been a massive game changer for me. Like I can love you and see everything amazing about you. You're a great person. And here's what I need. And I'm going to ask that of you, right? I need you to do this for me. Can you do that? If not, what can you do? What can we find out? And I can maintain that connection. Before that, I would go to, build up and build up. And then I grow resentful. And then all of a sudden, like I'd vomit it out, but I'd vomit it out in a way where I was closing my heart and I was disconnecting. I was making them wrong because that's the only way I knew how to do it. I think that was saying that out loud now, I think that was 100% how that was modeled to me as well growing up in my family, right? That was how we gave each other feedback. There's not a lot of connection to begin with, but then like any kind of negative feedback would be done with no connection, no love, and making the other person wrong.
I see.